Okay, we're going to set up the Ruby exercises directory from scratch on our machine, and then we will make the first exercise, the strings.rb test pass. It's going to be great. Okay, so here is the Ruby exercises page. You should be seeing this, and to get it installed, we'll just work through these instructions. These instructions might be a little bit different by the time you read them, but to clone the repository, we'll use this git clone command. So we'll just copy and paste that, and then we'll put it in our whatever directory you're using for Turing stuff. So this is my home directory. I'm going to cd into Turing school, the terminal. So git clone, or I'll clone the Ruby exercises. Clones that in there. And then if we ls it, we can see the Ruby exercises directory there on the left. So we'll cd into it. Okay, so we've cd'd into it, and then if you do ls, you'll see all of this stuff. So now let's see, we'll move through. So we'll run bundle, will be the next command. So bundle, and sure enough, we get this crazy error message. It basically says could not find the bundler gem. So we can do gem install bundler, and it'll go and install it. So now we can do bundle will work, bundle install, they're kind of the same thing. And it does all the stuff. So far, so good. And we got this output. So carry onward. So now we're set up correctly so we can work through specific exercises. So we've got this suggested workflow, suggested order thing. Let's start with the strings. That's the first one that we're told to work on, so that's what we'll do. So this is going to be in the data type strings directory. So we've got ls. We can see data types right there. So I'll cd, type DA, and then hit tab, and it auto-completes all the way across. I'm not very good at typing half the time, so I don't like having to type out exactly every single file name. So I'll hit enter, and ls again, and let's see. So data type strings, so we'll work into the strings list. So we'll do cd strings, tab complete again, do ls, and cool. Now I've got readme and strings. So I'm going to open this up in Atom. Here we go. So we can look at we've got the strings file, and this readme. This readme is kind of hard to read when it's in raw markdown. So you can open up the file and hit Command-Shift-P, and that opens up the command palette. You can also, we'll just do Command-Shift-P and type preview, and it'll let you toggle a markdown preview. So that looks nice. I'm going to shrink the sidebar away with the command \, and then I'll close the readme there. So we've got our test file on the left, and then the instructions on the right. Basically, we're going to run this file. So we'll do ruby strings.rb, ruby strings.rb. And we get a bunch of skips, which is perfect. Let's see. So now we're going to unskip this first skip. I'm going to do command ? And that comments out the line of code. You could manually add a £, but I would recommend getting in the habit of command ? because you can do things like this. You can select a whole block of text, command ? and it'll highlight out the whole thing. Or if you're like, oh, I want to just comment out this entire test, command ? comments out the whole thing. So command ? is, I would recommend that over the £. So we're going to comment out the skip, bring our terminal back, and hit the up arrow to bring that line of code back, and run it. And we have our first error. If you're here, this is a huge success. You've possibly just installed a fresh version of Ruby. You've installed Bundler. You've done bundle install, which brings in a bunch of libraries that you need. You've cd down to the right place. You've opened up the instructions in a neatly formatted markdown format, and you have a failing test. So this is huge. Good work. All right, so let's make this first test pass. And as we do so, I'm going to be talking about how I would recommend making physical paper notes, or notes on paper, as you go. Because everything that you'll be using in this file will need to become easy and accessible as you're moving forward into more complex things. You'll be doing string manipulation all the time. Okay, so this line of code says, in place of the line below, call a method on the name variable defined above to achieve the expected output. Expected is Alice with a capital A, and actual is Alice without a capital A. So let's just delete that and say actual equals name, and let's run the test again. So this error message has a lot of useful information. Recommend taking the time to read it. So it says there's an error in basically line 19 of strings.rb. That's what this colon means. And then the expected value is what we want, and the actual value is what we got. And we want it to have a capital A instead of lowercase a. So we could say actual equals ls, and now the test will pass. This little period here means that it passed. But we're supposed to call a method on the name variable. So let's look over here at the README and say, let's see, so these are additional methods that you need to complete the exercises. Each of these can be found in the Ruby docs for strings. So string.capitalize with a link to the docs. So I'm going to hold down the command key, click the link, and then take a look at this capitalize method. So we can see that at the top of this file, this is the string class. And then if we type Control or Command F and capitalize, we get this thing right here. So we basically, the thing I always look for is these examples and find those really helpful. So we've got hello.capitalize returns capital H, hello. Or all uppercase hello.capitalize also returns hello. So this seems promising. So we could say name.capitalize here. And I've got actual equals name. That passes. Cool. We could also move the dot capitalize down here. So here we'll see that it fails again. Lowercase a, capital A. So we can do name dot capitalize there, and it'll pass. Huzzah. So what I'm going to do is, having used string.capitalize, I'm coming over here to my notes. I'll show you them in a second. I've got this page devoted to Ruby methods, and then I'm writing the class name and then the method for each method that I'm going to encounter here. So this is going to be capital S string, and then a pound sign, and then a short description. Okay, so I wrote it down. So you can see here on this paper, I have Ruby methods, as all Ruby methods are going to go on this page, and then when they get to the bottom, I'll just make another page. I've already written down array.select because that's something I was using before. That's an array method. And then you can see here string.capitalize. And then I wrote a very modest description in very poorly, I've got bad handwriting. And then it's got a little description. So it capitalizes string, and then I've got lowercase hi.capitalize, and then you can kind of see right there, capital H high. This writing stuff down is really important, and I would strongly recommend you do the same. Obviously, I can't force you. You're a free person, but this kind of stuff is nestled nicely in line with how Barbara Oakley in the book A Mind for Numbers recommends learning things. So you should do it. All right. This one passes. So test 2, call a method to achieve the expected outcome. So let's use command question mark. Oh yeah, and then with Atom, I'm also writing down all the keyboard shortcuts that I use. So this would be command plus question mark, comments out code. So you can see here I have a section. So you can see here I have a section called Atom. So these are going to be all my Atom shortcuts that I'll be using. And each shortcut I'm using, I'm writing down. So I've got how to open the command palette, because we've already done that. Command backslash, trigger toggle sidebar, and then command question mark, comments out code. These will be, you're basically building your own cheat sheet, because I guarantee in 5 minutes or an hour or a day or a week or a month, you'll be like, what was that like Atom shortcut that I used, that one thing? You can refer here and pull it out immediately. I would strongly recommend having one page per chunk so you know exactly where to go. So rather than like nestling in Atom keyboard shortcuts and Ruby methods kind of on the same page, just have one page dedicated to each. I know all of this stuff, so the reason I'm showing you my workflow is because learning code and how to write software in Ruby is a thing. It's hard. So I'm showing you not just here's how to like reason about the code, but also here's how to take what you're learning and start building it into like a solid foundation on top of which you can do additional learning. All right, so Alice, best workflow is to, once you have a test passing, unskip the next one, then run the test again. Up arrow brings it back. I have, you'll probably not be surprised to hear, another page of terminal shortcuts. So we have terminal commands, and I've got stuff about CD, and now I'm going to say up arrow plus return brings back runs prior line. So up arrow plus return brings back and runs the prior line. Terminal shortcuts on one side, Atom or terminal stuff on one side, Ruby methods on the other. Keeping them separated like this is going to be helpful. So undefined method underscore underscore underscore. So we can take that off, run our tests again, and our expected was capitalized, or all up big letters, capital letters, and we got this. So let's see, we've got string got capitalized. Let's just look through this list and see if there's anything that looks promising. Chomp, chop, delete, include, length, reverse, substrip, upcase. This seems promising. So I'll click the link. Here's upcase, returns a copy of string with all lowercase letters replaced with their uppercase counterparts. So hello.upcase, this looks promising. Let's try it. Name.upcase. Run the test, up arrow, and we got it. Cool. On to the next one. Remove the skip. We know it's going to throw this problem with this undefined method thing. Underscore, underscore, underscore. This is left to like show you to like fill in the blank, but it's not actually valid code. So I'm just going to take the name off and we'll run it so we can see what it expects and what it got. So we expected Alice all lowercase and we got actual with some uppercase stuff. Knowing that we just called upcase, it sounds like there could be a downcase. So even here in the docs it says see downcase for meaning of options to use with different encodings. Downcase seems promising. I'm going to click it with uppercase letters replaced with lowercase counterparts. So it sounds like it does the opposite of upcase. So I'm going to say name.downcase. Let's run the tests, and they pass. Okay, so over here, Ruby methods. Got string.capitalize, string.upcase, and I write little examples in the code. So here's what I added. We've got string upcase and downcase, and then I did a little example next to that of like hello.upcase returns that, hello.downcase equals this other thing. Don't feel like you have to do exactly what I'm doing, but again, the concept of writing it down, looking at the docs, like writing down the method that we're now using along with the tiny example is going to go so far in helping you like retain and use this information. All right, onward. Test 3, so test 4, unskip. We're just going to go ahead and call rhyme dot whatever, take that out so we can just see what the failure ought to be. So Peter picked a, wow. Let's read the code. It says in place of the line below, call a method to achieve the expected results. Okay. This is backwards. It's this line of code, but backwards. So looking at our list of docs here, reverse seems promising. So I'm going to click that, take a look. Part of the reason I'm recommending that you look at the docs for every single method is just to get in the habit of reading the docs and getting value from the docs and seeing how the docs like categorize themselves. For instance, this source thing, this is not Ruby. I don't know what any of this means. I know it's like C or whatever Ruby compiles into. It's a different programming language. So like source is not helpful. But this is helpful, and stress.reverse being desserts, super helpful. So let's try rhyme.reverse. Run the test, up arrow, and it passes. Great. You know it's coming here. String reverse. Test 5. We'll skip this, and we'll run it. Kicking, ticking. So we want to change this T into a K. There's a couple different ways we could do this, but what's listed here is this sub thing, which happens to stand for substitute. So if you're trying to figure this out yourself, you could maybe open up all of these and just scan through them and get a feel for what they do, but this substitute one looks promising. It might allow you to substitute a portion of a string with something else. So sub pattern replacement returns a copy of str, which is string, with the first occurrence of pattern. So what this means is the first occurrence of pattern. Pattern is now referencing this portion. So this is the way you can read this is if we have a string and we call dot and then use sub and add pattern replacement, that references different variables. So we could do like word.sub pattern replacement, and now we're kind of following this pattern. Now these are stand-in for things, so we could say, here's another one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts, Command-Shift-Enter adds a line above where the cursor is. So that is going to go here on Atom, Command plus Shift plus return. Command-Shift-Enter, add new line above cursor. So we could say pattern equals T, and replacement equals K. And now this is going to follow the rough pattern of these docs. So let's take a look at examples. So this is all using regular expressions, so it's not super helpful. We won't worry about it yet. So I guess let's just first see if this works, and then I'll unpack it a little bit more. and it passes. So this feels like a lot of work, right? Like word.sub pattern, which is really referencing this t, and replacement, which is really referencing this k. So let's get rid of all of that and just say t, k. And we can run it, and it still passes. So when reading the docs, you can interpret these patterns and replacements as like variables that reference something else. And this is the relationship between this sub pattern replacement and then how we actually used it here, which is word.sub t and k. So docs, Ruby methods, string sub replace one portion. So I've got string.sub or string sub and then a very short example sentence about it. These notes shouldn't be exhaustive. It's just something for you to refer back to when you're like, oh, I know I've done this thing that I want to do before. Where do I get it? Open up your Ruby methods and you'll find it right there. And I added Command Shift Enter on my Atom docs or my Atom keyboard shortcuts. So we'll remove that, skip, comment that out. We'll just take that out because that's going to throw an error and run our tests. Went clocking, and we actually wanted ticking. Ticking, clocking. So we can now we can look at our docs for Ruby. We can look and be like, okay, it's string.sub. So we're going to try doing this with sub. And it takes two things, the thing that we want to remove and the thing we want to replace it with. So CLO, let's say CLO. And we could actually give it an empty string over here, and we would, if it replaces CLO with nothing, we would expect this to be king, C-K-I-N-G. So let's try it. Expected clocking, actual ticking. Okay, that did not work. Actual word.sub claw. Let's try giving... Oh, it's because this is... So looking in our docs, it's the pattern. I gave it a pattern that doesn't exist in this word. CLO doesn't exist in ticking. So I could do TI, and now it's going to replace the TI with nothing. So it's CKING, king. And then we could say give it CLO, and now it's going to take off the TI, put in the CLO, and it passes. Great. So I already had sub written down, so I'm not going to write anything additional down. Take that out, words dot whatever, take that out, and then run our tests. Up arrow, enter. We've got 5 sleepy kittens, and we expect... It looks like the pattern is all E's, should get replaced with asterisks. So seems like a place for sub. Sub. Let's give it E, and let's give it empty string. So this should remove the E's. Perfect. Fiv. Sleepy kittens. It only took the first E out. Interesting. Let's try replacing it with $sign anyway, and that should make the first one work. Yeah, so 5, this looks good, but then we need these E's are not being captured. And we can look at the docs, and this says returns a copy of the string with the first occurrence of pattern. So this would imply that it would only remove the first E and not the additional E's. Let's see if there's any hints here. No, let's look at our docs. String.sub. There's another method called global substitute, which is abbreviated to gsub. I will add that to our list. So this returns a copy of string. So you'll notice that this looks similar to sub. Returns a copy of string with all occurrences of a pattern substituted for the second argument, which sounds kind of like what we're looking for. So let's try this. Words.gsub. E, let's replace these with triple uppercase E's just so it's easy to see. Actually, let's say ZZZ. So we should see this work kind of before our eyes. Yeah, 5's sleepies kittens seems promising. So instead of ZZZ, we'll give it an asterisk, run it, and it passes. So string g sub, I'm going to say same as sub. So I wrote same as sub, but captures all occurrences. This seems tedious and slow, but I guarantee you that this will be helpful in the long run, or in even the medium run. So we'll remove that, run the tests. Expected hello, got hello with 2 exclamation marks. So we could do this a couple different ways. We could use our faithful sub and say anytime you find 2 exclamation marks, replace it with 1 exclamation mark. And it passes. We could also, let's check out this string.delete thing, because this isn't we could replace the string, but we could also just remove something. So it returns a copy of string with all characters in the intersection of its arguments deleted. So this hello.delete lo returns he. Let's just experiment here. So let's try greetings.delete exclamation mark. Okay, so that deleted all of the exclamation marks. We just wanted to delete one of them. Intersection of arguments. So if L and LO, HE, okay, I'm not really feeling it with delete. Let's see what else we got. Capitalize concat, chomp. Let's take a look at chomp. Not helpful. Chop, maybe? Returns a new string with the last character removed. That seems promising. Chop. Nailed it. Okay, so we can make this work with sub. We could make it work with gsub, but we can also do string chop. Great. Onward. So we'll comment that out. Well, we can run it. Because this \n with this different color is kind of new. So let's just see what we get. So expected, actual, this looks pretty close. But see how this quote mark is on the second line? This \n is a new line character, so it creates new lines in strings. So see if we did a couple more of them. Now let's see what we get. Yeah, so see how we've got all these empty new lines here? So we have to figure out a way to remove this new line character, which is known as a control character. So let's take a look at, we've got chop, which removes if a string ends with \r\n. So it says applying chop to an empty string returns an empty string. String.chomp is often a safer alternative. Leaves the string unchanged if it doesn't end in a record separator. So let's try chop first. And run it. And it passes. Cool. And then let's try chomp because it said that was a safer alternative. Let's see if chomp also does it. Which also passes. So let's take a look at chomp. Chomp right here. Modify string in place is described for string.chomp returns string or nil if no modifications were made. Oh, that's exclamation mark. So a method with an exclamation mark is different than a method without an exclamation mark. So let's take a look at chomp here with given record separators removed from the string if present. So hello.chomp doesn't do anything. Hello \n.chomp returns hello. So chomp is perfect. So we're going to write it down. String.chomp, remove new line separators. The reason I'm writing string and then pound in front of everything is because soon we're going to be dealing with other classes of methods. We're going to get like number methods or array methods or all sorts of different things. So every method is expected to be available on its class. So a string method will not be available on an integer or a float. So that's why I'm writing string and then the method to make it easy for me to know what kind of thing are we actually trying to deal with and what methods might be available to it. This will make more sense soon. All right, remove that. Greeting. Okay, we know .chomp here will do the trick because that removes new line separators. Boom, got it. It can be risky, by the way, to think that you're removing a skip and making it pass. Because look at this. Let's say I did greeting.upcase. So we know upcase does not work. This does not make it pass. But it still kind of looks like it passed, right? These S's mean tests are skipped. And this test is still skipped. So if I made this change, ran the test, thought I was good, I would have a problem. Whereas if I make sure that to remove the skip, I see a failing test. Okay, there's the upcased thing. And then be like, I didn't want upcase, I wanted chomp. All right, test 11. So let's make sure this fails. Cool. Let's delete that thing. All right, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And we wanted mo. That is hard to pronounce, but it looks like we're removing e's, right? No e's there, no e's there. There is an I. So we've got our handy dandy notes here. We've already seen gsub, so let's try it. And we want to remove e and replace it with What do we want to replace it with? Nothing. Got it. So this replaces it with nothing. It seems counterintuitive to replace it to, like, if we try to replace it with a space is not nothing, and now it adds, you can see the strings kind of being wrong there. But if we replace it with nothing, and it passes. This is an example where writing down the methods that we're crossing paths with is helpful, because if you didn't write it down, you may have even forgotten. You may have forgotten just in the last few minutes that you'd already seen the method, but you would almost certainly forget tomorrow. So being like, oh, I've seen this method, I know I have it somewhere, I've got it referenced, makes it really easy to go in and find what you're trying to work with. So let's see how that does. Undefined method, such and such. Great. All right, so expected actual, this has got e's removed. It also has an I removed and an O and an E. So now this, like, we can call G sub again and give it an E and then replace it with an empty string. And that's going to get us closer, but we still have this unwanted I and O. So could we pass in I and O here? The answer is no, we can't. So let's take a look at G sub again. Remember earlier when I said, oh yeah, so to toggle tabs, if you hold down Command Shift and then left bracket and right bracket, it toggles through open tabs. If you go off on one side, it just kind of keeps going around in a circle. So I would write that down on, it's kind of like a generalized thing. It works in Atom. It also works in a browser. So I might do Chrome, Command plus Shift. So I wrote it down there. Chrome, and then the keyboard shortcut, and then cycle through open tabs. Again, just so it's easy for you to find when you decide you're ready for it. So I'm going to Command W closes open tabs. I have a bunch open, so I'm going to hit Command W and start closing them out. I know I have, there's G sub and Chrome. Again, I know these things. I'm doing it so you know exactly the template to follow for learning all of these keyboard shortcuts and the Ruby methods. All of these things kind of create this multifaceted approach to testing things quickly and looking for things effectively. So G sub pattern replacement. Pattern. Pattern is typically a regular expression. So let's look at these examples. So regular expressions are complicated. It just means you can give it a specially formatted pattern, and the expression, your string will be it'll look for things in the string. So here it says AIOU, and it gives this, and it replaces it with this asterisk. So it looks like it swaps all vowels AIOU with an asterisk. So that seems promising. So let's look here. So the way I usually build up regular expressions is, well, first we know we want to put in we want to replace it with nothing. So there's the empty string. Regular expressions always go inside of double forward slashes, and then this capture block, then we'll give it AEIOU. So this should swap out all of our rhymes. Perfect. Would I recommend you write down this G sub regular expression thing? I don't know. You need to know that you can use regular expressions for G sub, but regular expressions are kind of a pain often, so it's not worth trying to learn a lot about regular expressions. We'll just know that it works. All right, so we'll comment that out. Greeting, hello world. Let's remove that and then run our tests. Expected 12, actual hello world. So what is this 12? This would be the number of characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, so the number of characters in this string is what we want here. Let's look here. Length looks promising. Returns the character length of string. Great, so greeting dot length. And it passes. String dot length puts length to the string. Onwards. Remove the skip. Remove that. Make sure we get an error. Great. Expected 13 got hello world, so let's try, we've already written it down, length. And it passes. Great. We're almost done. Let's run those, make sure we get an error. Great. Place a line below. So hello world. We'll just try .length again. I'm not going to count individual white space characters. Cool. So that was easy. Length, length, length. Let's make sure this fails. Expected to actual hello world. So 2, So greeting.length probably isn't going to do it. We're going to get like 18 or 13 or something. Cool. So it seems like we're trying to count words, right? Ah, no. Call a method to get the number of O, occurrences of O in the string. So we want to count not just words or characters, but we want to count the O's. Let's take a look at our count docs. So we've got length. Source doesn't matter. Call a method to get the number of O's. I bet there is a count. I don't know. Seems promising, right? So these are all the methods that are available on strings. They're alphabetized. So I'm going to see if there's something called like count. There's count right there. Defines a set of characters to count. So a.count LO returns 5. LO and O. We're not going to worry too much about the complexity of the syntax. Let's just see what we get when we get dot count and then pass in a string of O. Cool, that did it. Let's see if we pass in a string of L. Should be 3 because there's 2 L's in hello and 1 world or one. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So O, run it, and don't skimp on this stuff. It'll be helpful. Number of vowels in the string this time. So 1, 2, 3 vowels. This is going to come back as an error. So let's try greeting.count O. Also, O, this is different than typing that. If we do O, that thinks it's a variable. That thinks it's a string containing the letter O. 3, got 2. Can we pass in an E? Yeah, maybe let's do EOW. Let's do L. This should also count a much higher number. Interesting. So these aren't really like order dependent. I would have thought that like RLD would return 1 because there's only one instance of RLD here. But this is going to return a lot more than 1 because there's 5 total instances of, if you add up the instances of R and L and D, that's what you get. So AEIOU should still return 3 and we'll be good. Great. In the line below, let's make sure that this errors. Great. Call a method to check if the string includes LO. LLO. Cool. So we see this include thing over here. Click the docs. So include question mark other string. So hello.include LO. This can also be confusing. Here, I'll show you. Greeting.include hello. These two lines of code are the same. So you can put parentheses around your arguments, or you can just separate them with a space and not put parentheses. And you'll notice that these docs kind of opt for the non-parentheses format. I kind of prefer to use parentheses, but you can go either way. So we'll delete that. Control-Shift-K deletes the current line. So coming over here to Atom, Control plus Shift plus K, and it's any line your cursor is on. So if I grab that and shift down to there and then hit Control-Shift-K, it deletes all of it. Control-Z brings it back. That command I used earlier to duplicate a line is Command-Shift-D, D for duplicate. So it just copies blocks of code. It's super handy. Or if I wanted to copy this entire test, I could highlight it, hit Command-Shift-D, and then it copies the whole thing straight below. That is an extremely handy shortcut. Command-Shift-D. So definitely write it down. I don't know why it's so hard to line these up. All right, there we go. Control-Shift-K, Command-Shift-D. So greeting.include hello, we already looked at that. Returns true if it contains the given character. So over to Ruby methods. There's include. My handwriting's horrible. It's fine. So this should make it pass. Undefined. I always forget the question marks. Cool. Nope, failure. expected true, actual false. So hello match, capital H hello is different than lowercase hello, so this fails, this will pass. And instantly, this is not what this test, they want to see if the string contains or includes low, LLO, so we'll change that. It still passes. Great. Remove the skip, remove that, get the failure. Call a method to check if the string contains or includes lol. So we've got dot include lol, and it'll be false. Cool. Remove this. Actual equals, let's say, well, let's just run it. Undefined local variable or method, that thing. So let's say empty string actual equals empty string. And now we can see our expected is hello world, my name is Harry Potter, and our actual thing is empty string. So use string manipulation to combine greeting and name variables to achieve the expected outcomes. So string manipulation to combine things. What do we've got? Capitalized concat, and concat stands for concatenate, which concatenates, which I don't know if that's a non-programming term, but it squeezes two things together and makes them one. I don't actually even know what a code point is, so don't worry about it. Let's look at the docs. A equals hello. A.concat world 33. We get hello world. I don't know what the 33 thing is, so let's just try that. So actual equals greeting.concat name, right? Greeting.concat name, because name references this Harry Potter thing. So let's try it. Hello world, my name is Harry Potter. My name is Harry Potter. Okay, so we almost got it, but the desired string contains a space between the is and Harry Potter, and our actual string doesn't. So let's say the docs say can take multiple arguments. So let's say concat name, and then let's give it not an empty string, but a space string as a second argument. Let's see if that does it. Not quite. There's a space here, so it added a space to the end of the string. So it's order dependent. So if we do hello name arg2 arg3, we're going to see these kind of squeezed in there in the order that they're given. See, here's arg2 arg3. So that means we could do empty string with a space here, and that'll concat name and space. What? Line 20. Oh, this is weird. Okay, so now it also duplicates this down here. I don't love this format, but we'll write down concat in the docs. So cool. So we've got concat there. So, and this actually says undefined local variable or method down here in line 210. So here's line 210. So it says use another method to achieve the same goal. So let's look at our docs and see if it gives, so concat. So see also such and such, which takes a single argument. So this is another alias to concat in a way. So a equals hello, and then we add in world, and we get hello world. So let's try greeting name. So we got hello world, my name is Harry Potter, Harry Potter. Why is Harry... so this actual got overwritten here. I'm going to comment this out, these lines of code out, and just mess with this. So now we've got is Harry Potter, and it's still not quite working. So we could do maybe 2 arguments. Maybe that'll work. Okay, so believe it or not, that passed. I don't like this test. So let's comment this out real quick just to make sure that that one worked. So we're commenting all that stuff out, and now that passed. So let's bring these back. Let's comment this out now. And then it says, again, using a different method. These should just be different tests. Hopefully by the time you see this, these are going to be cleaned up separate tests, so you won't have to deal with all this commenting code in and out. So we've got greeting. Let's see, Ruby combine strings. There's a bunch of different ways of doing this in Ruby, so I'm just going to Google it. string concatenation and interpolation. So let's do that. Ruby string concatenation and interpolation. So interpolation, so this is kind of, yeah, let's do this A plus B thing. Let's try that. So greeting plus name should do it, or should be something close. Hello world, my name is Harry. Okay, so we want a space. So let's do greeting plus empty space, or empty string with a space in it. And then let's try that. And this is confusing. This actually means that this line of code passed. So last one we'll do here. Let's check our docs. That looks fine. Plus equals. So we could do concat. We already did that. We've already done that. And now string interpolation. So this is what we're going to do. So it takes an empty string, and then you do this pound curly brace thing. So let's try that. So let's say actual equals this, and just make sure that the test is working. Cool. So now we can do this pound curly brace thing, which you can see the editor already kind of recognizes as being something fancy. And then we can say greeting, right? Because this says name, or like, let's say, hi, this is interpolation. And then we'll run that, and we see, hi, this is interpolation, returned here. And now let's put a variable in here, name. Hi, this is interpolation Harry Potter. So this we're rapidly arriving at our solution. So now instead of interpolation or all of that stuff, we can say greeting. Or I'm sorry, we'll have to interpolate this again. So pound that thing, greeting. And then now we have this space problem again, missing a space there. So we can just add a space there. And now we're good to go. So what do we do here? We're going to do, we've got a bunch of things we're going to have to add here. So we can do string arrow arrow concats a string. So we've got our arrow and our plus thing. The fact that it doesn't matter that this is kind of like not good documentation. You're not going to be publishing this and having like official questions about the programming language asked to you. So whatever makes sense to write it down, go for it. And then this interpolation thing is tricky. Quote and then pound curly brace. This is how I wrote interpolation. I just wrote the word and then the basic pattern, which is double quote, pound, curly brace, variable, and other words. Doesn't matter that it's not super precise, just having it written down and understanding the basics of what it's doing when as far as you're using it here, super helpful. Do it. So we're just going to leave all this the way it is. Hopefully when you watch this point in the video, there'll be I'll have converted these into like multiple subtests. All right, so skipping that phrase there, we're almost done. So we're getting a big messy error. Expected was to the moon and actual was this nastiness. We had success, like these are a bunch of control characters, so let's just try .chomp again. Because remember that worked really well last time. Didn't do it this time. Expected to the moon, actual. I don't know if this actually cleaned anything up to achieve the expected outcome. So let's try looking through these lists. If chomp didn't do it, let's look at strip that removes characters. Cool, so returns a copy of the receiver, which is another way of saying like itself, with leading and trailing white space removed. That seems promising. So phrase.strip, run the tests. And that was it. Cool, so string. But big wins from this are twofold. One, you've made all these tests pass. That's great. You've learned a lot about like mini test and like terminal and code. You've looked up a lot of methods, and possibly most importantly, you've got this whole page created when you started with almost nothing. So there's a lot of string methods. This seems kind of overwhelming, right? Like, oh, I'm just like going to learn all of these new string methods. These are going to cover most of the string methods that you're going to use. And a similar number would cover most of the methods that you would use for numbers or arrays. So like there's a couple of primary base classes in Ruby of data types: arrays, hashes, strings. Floats are like decimals, like 4.5 is a float. Integers single number like 4 or 44, that would be an integer. There's probably some other stuff I'm not thinking of right now. But if you know like the top most common 10 methods for each of those types, you can do almost anything you need to do in Ruby. So don't let this be daunting. This should be vastly encouraging. Of this number of arrays, or these methods, covers almost everything you're going to need to know about strings. And having now poked around in the docs a couple of times, you're now that much more equipped to go looking around and see exactly what kind of things you might need. We'll end it here. Hopefully you'll go take a long walk and a break before touching any more programming. Like, I'll be referencing Barbara Oakley's Mind for Numbers a number of times, but she talks about learning how to learn hard things, and it's really important that you give yourself breaks between difficult chunks of learning, which this was. So, good work. Give yourself a pat on the back.